Uh, Hello, my name is Jacky Day. I'm a player from Canada. I mainly play Kruleboyz. I do have a couple tournaments with Big Wa too. Lately, last week I won a tournament, first place. It's a 1-day tournament, but 4 games, so it's lots of Warhammer, 10.5 hours in one day. I also got 2 more first place wins. Just single day tournaments as well. One tournament in August and one tournament in July. I also have a few second place placings too in the last few months.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think currently I'm rank 1 in Canada, but I might be ranked 4 in the world.
Yeah.
Boys.
I mean, if you're like ranked top anything, that's impressive, right? So let's go through your list. So you're playing Grid and Blades, Grand Strats Wa with Indomitable being the Triumph. You're playing a Snatcher Boss with, as your general, with Eagle Maniac, Morkside Pebble, and Smellian. Not gonna lie, when I saw this list, I had to actually go check what Smellian did because I had forgotten. Right, it's not as common. Gobsprack, 3 Swamp Kala Shamans. That's also a little bit atypical from what we normally see, but I've seen triple Swamp Kalas before. Like at 100 points, I kind of think that they're point for point maybe the best unit in our army. 2x20 Gut Rippas, 10 Hobgrots, and then 2x6 Bolt Boys, Acolytes Battalion, 1990. So here's a question for you. So why did you settle on this list? Like, was there something in your local meta, or was there something that you were anticipating that this list in particular was designed to counter?
Yes, so the reason I went with this list is because of 2 armies. One is Kharadron Overlords. A lot of the top players here, like every tournament I go to, there's 3 to 4, at least 3 Kharadron players, and usually one of them takes top. And what happens with Kharadron, if you just have the basic 10 Garrett Ripper screen, 2x10 and the hot rods, is they give you the first turn, and turn 2 they come in, kill all your screens, and if they get the double, they disable you right after. So that's why I went for the double 20 got Rippas. And I actually played Kharadron in game 4 last week, top table, and what happened was they came in, turn 2, killed only half of the Garipas on each side, so I was left with 10 and 10. And then I did have Indomitable for one side and Auto Pass the other for the other side Garipas. They did get the double as well and killed all the Garipas the following turn, as well as like a few Bolt Boys. But on the attack back, I was able to kill all the units in the ship.
Right.
So, yeah. Also against OCR Moon Reapers, the Garipa Blobs is actually quite hard to deal with for them because they don't often have monsters or heroes attacking you. It's usually the Death Riders and the guard, the bone guard, the dual sworded bone guards which aren't monsters. And with the -1 to hit, as well as like Noisy Racket, -1 to wound, and your save stacking, they have a hard time going through Garipas. And you can punch back pretty hard with mortal wounds.
Right, and you were telling me before that you'll even use, like, because you have 3 Swamp Kalas, you'll even use the elixirs, right, to help, like, give those Gut Rippas +1 save. So you were saying, like, with Elixir and with All Out Defense and with even Mystic Shield, right, because you're 5 casts in this army, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to use something outside the lore of the swamp, no matter what, right? So yeah, I mean, like you were saying that you're on 4 up saves, ignoring 2 rend with Gut Rippas on turn 1, right?
Yeah, it's very effective.
Awesome. So after playing this list a little bit, like, are there any variations of this list that you would consider, or like, is there something in this list that you would change, or like, here's a better question, like, against what kinds of metas would you change this list, and how would you change it?
One variation I did try is instead of one of the groups of 20 Garipas, you take the Gnash Tooth instead, and the Gnash Tooth would instead have the Eagle Maniac. Right. And this would be against armies that have 3 things. One is Kronspine, or Morathi, or if they play Sons of Behemoth the Giants, because With Egomaniac, safe stacking and Nash 2 with Egomaniac and Smelly, you can lock down their Quan Spine or Marathi or Giant for like 2-3 turns.
Yeah.
And you're trading a 120 point piece for like a 500 point plus piece.
So you're just locking it down, buying time, and setting it up for like hasty shot Bold Boys.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? Like that 3-up save on the Nash Tooth goes a long way, right? Like especially in our army, it goes a long way.
I also want to mention that during the turn 1, most people will position out of bullet range their key targets, so most of the time you're going to be giving your potions instead of the elixirs for the +1 save. Probably to the 2 Garupas and the Sludge Raker, if they happen to go for it. Also, I find that some armies, they don't actually want to fight you in the first turn. Armies such as Zinch and a lot of ones that don't have Alpha Strike, so Noisy Racket isn't actually auto pick turn 1. You want to go with Disappearing Axe and the Trap if you don't anticipate any combat in the first turn.
Yeah, that's interesting to me, because I think that you've just said two things that I think lots of players should kind of take to heart. The first one is, you're right. There's not a ton of Alpha Strike armies out there right now, right? Like, Korn maybe is going to try to get you turn 1. Obviously, something like Iron Jaws, maybe Slaves to Darkness. KO can do some shooting at you turn 1, but there's lots of armies that are really strong that aren't going to be doing that, right? Seraphon, to name one, and I'm sure there's lots of others.
Yeah, Seraphon, the Lumineth round boards, they can't really cast or shoot at you turn 1, so that's another army too.
Right, especially if you're deploying back, right? Like if you're playing Cruelboys and you are sort of deploying in a defensive castle a little bit off the line. Yep. And the second thing that you said is that you're like, if you're not anticipating combat on turn 1, you're right. It's like those elixirs are going to be pretty helpful. If those Bolt Boys aren't going to be shooting on your first turn, if your opponent gives you turn 1 and you're not shooting, it's like, okay, elixir. That might be super clever, right?
Yep, and they double you. You get the buff still on the Carapace.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty important thing, right? Because I remember talking to Aaron Newbaum, and he was saying how for him controlling the first turn is really, really important for him in the way that he plays, because he always likes to leave the option of a super sneaky Alpha Strike, right, where he's going to take a block of 20 or a block of 30 Gut Rippas, stick them in his opponent's face, and then use like a fast and Sludge Raker to catch up. So he has that option. But I noticed in your list you're only running the Acolytes battalion, because obviously the Primal Dice game with Gobsprak is certainly worth playing. I think I can't imagine playing Gobsprak and not playing Acolytes, because then you're not really leaning into your own strategy, right? But you don't value, or you must not value first turn as highly in this list. This list seems much more defensive, I would say. Would you agree?
Yes, because I think if you're playing against Caradron, you won't get the first turn no matter what, because they're always 1-drop and you're minimum 2-drop.
Yes.
With the double battle regiment. Also, the list I think it's 4 drops, and against any Warlord's army, you'll still be dictating turn 1, and the only thing you won't have is going against other double battle regiment battalions where it's 50-50, you go first or second.
Right.
Slaves to Darkness will always get the first turn no matter what, even if you get double battle regiment as well.
Right. So you're kind of like, so it's like, well, I'm against armies that want to control the first turn no matter what. You're probably not going to get to control the first turn. And being 4 drops, yeah, like you're still pretty light. Yeah, because I guess, yeah, that's awesome. So, how So do you find that you're getting first turn like all the time? Like pretty reliably you're getting first turn? Are players like giving that to you?
Um, every time yes, if they get to choose, they'll give me the first turn. If I'm not playing the single battle regiment armies, I actually consistently get to choose, and I would always choose going second if I get the choice.
Right. So how are you deploying against these different kinds of armies? Like how are you kind of like I'm kind of curious. Like I think that the idea of like setting up your screens in the front and your bullboys in the back is pretty obvious against like a really aggressive alpha strikey army, like you were saying, Slaves to Darkness, right? But how are you deploying and how are you setting up against these more castle-y armies like Lumineth and Seraphon?
Against the castle armies, you pretty much just want to plop your Garipas on objectives and try to outhold them on the objectives. Because against those armies and even Tzeentch, they have trouble getting bodies on the board if they're casting themselves. And Gut Rippers are actually very efficient. Sometimes I've been able to deny like their 5 points from holding like 2 objectives firmly with 20 Gut Rippers for the first 2 terms before like they get demolished.
Right, and then save stacking them too, right?
Yeah. Against the like Alpha Strike armies, you don't ever want to put all 40 Garupas in a line in front of you, because if they can kill 20, they can actually kill 40 pretty easily.
Yeah,
so you want just the 20 as your screen, save stack that. They can break through that, and then if they double you, they got another 20 behind. If they don't, you're going in with 20 Garupas and your Sludge Raker, maybe Gobsprak for a big wall.
For a big
counterattack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So, and then I also, one thing about your list that is really interesting to me is the Egomaniac and Smelly One combination. Like, you're really trying to make sure that this Snatcher boss survives and can actually deal out a ton of damage, right? So can you kind of walk me through, like, what a normal... Like, can you walk me through, like, what a normal sort of game looks like turn 1, turn 2, turn 3? And would you also mind terribly telling me about, like, what kind of battle tactics you're also looking for as you progress through turns against different kinds of matchups? Like what do your games actually look like when you win?
Oh, okay. So turn 1, I usually go for the Magical Dominance battle tactic. Sneak Up is pretty easy, but I think Magical Dominance is the harder one to get. So you want to get that one out of the way while you can, because usually they're going to deploy in a way that they want to be out of range of Gobsprak.
Yes.
So you can kind of put like 1 or 2 shamans in the back to guarantee a cast Mystic Shield or something like that.
And do you mind, like, if they do deploy within unbind range of Gobsprak, do you just skip his spells?
So if they do deploy unbind range of Gobsprak and your 2 shamans in the back, like they deploy their mages really far up.
Well, how about just, because like normally when I'm deploying with Gobsprak, I'll put him more aggressively forward.
Yep, that's
right?
what I do. So
and then my shamans are kind of hiding in the back.
Yep.
Right. So if that's the case, if they're within unbind of Gobsprak, do you just not cast spells with Gobsprak? Do you just cast spells with the shamans that are out of unbind range for Magical Dominance and say like, oh yeah, Gobsprak's not going to do anything?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So it'll just be like either 1 or 2 casts, maybe Mystic Shield, and the other one do the Summon Boggy Mist or the Choking Mist, and that'd be it. And so that would be your battle tactic turn 1, and you just deploy the castling formation. You want to get against most armies, you won't get the lowest bodies in the front as possible while still holding 2 objectives. Like even a line of Hobgrots, if you line them up in a straight line horizontally, you can probably catch 2 objectives on the first turn, and score your max points. Right, hold 2 more battle tactic,
so
which
like,
is 10 top.
Unfold your castle as little as possible while trying to get your 5 points.
Yep.
Right.
Sometimes, if it's against, like I play against Tzeentch a lot, and they don't have that many bodies, I would just set the 20 Garupas in front, and they probably can't even get to that with any melee anyways.
Right.
And for turn 2, so I actually, in turn 1, I never go for Surround and Destroy, because it's too much to put on the sides.
With
You
this
can't-
list, yes.
Yeah.
100%.
And you can also, if you look at your opponent and they're deploying in a way that they're getting surround and destroy, do the disappearing act and pick those units up. And they won't get the tactic if they choose it, because it has to be fully. 2 of their units have to be fully outside their territory, and when they
Right.
place it in movement phase, they can't move anymore. So they can't get their tactic with those units.
Yeah, that's
Does that make
interesting.
sense?
Yeah, Cruelboys has actually a pretty good toolkit to help or to try to deny these turn 1 battle tactics from some armies sometimes. It's interesting.
So if that one's denied for them, they're going to try to do it again the second turn, and that's just too slow for them, because now you're in range for shooting. They can't attack because they're already committing 2 units on the side, and it's quite good for you. You can get it off.
That's cool.
Yeah, in turn 2, I usually, this is where I go for either sneak up or the one where I have to get more units outside of the territory than in, because a lot of these new maps, the deployment zone is actually very small. It's like only 11 inches. So it's really easy to do that. If they like alpha strike you with KO or Corn, you can probably get the one time to get stuck in, which is have all your units within 12.
Yep, that one's always in the back of my mind, right? Like when can I get this one? If they're gonna alpha strike me, that's the only really time you can get it, I think.
And from turn 3, the battle tactic, one that's kind of easy to get is take Dayasukas, deal 10 damage, and receive less than 10, because you can shoot with your bull boys, and maybe this is the turn to send your sludge rakers in, your Garrapas in, maybe even Gobstrack and call the Wah, and try to get it where they can't retaliate.
Yep, you're just gonna wipe them off the table.
Yep. If that one you think it's risky, you can also do the one where you get a battle line charge and a hero charge. One's also doable.
Yeah, because you're trying to get that Snatcher Boss into a fight, right? Like, you're not really holding them back for, like, turn 4. Like, with Smellian and Egomaniac, like, I feel like you want to get him into the fight.
Yep, definitely. I get them into the fight as soon as I can. Also, you can place your Sludge Raker just right behind the Garrapas, so when you get charged in the Garrapas, the Sludge Raker can still attack over the Garrapas. Yep.
How many dice does he throw with a 3-inch range? He's got I think he has 2 different attacks that have a 3-inch range, right?
I think it's his first 2 profiles. So he has the rider with the stick and then the claw, so it's like 6 dice.
Yeah, it'll actually be 9 dice total.
Oh yeah, sorry, 9. Yeah, 3 plus 6.
3s and 3s. Yeah, 1 rend. Yep. Yeah, most of his dice are on a 3-inch range. He has 9 on a 3-inch range, and then he has 3 on a 1-inch range. So I mean, that matters. Like that's a lot of reach, right?
Yeah, and you want to keep in mind that you have like something I always forget when I first started playing is he has the snatch and grab, and it works on heroes because it's only thing you can't do is 7 wounds or higher, and you can't eat units with mounts. But if they have like a melee hero in combat, and you have 2 choices to target, you can kill all their like battle line units or like their infantry, and then at the end of combat roll for picking up the hero and eating it. On average, you get it because you're rolling 2 dice.
Well, it's 7 or less or 8 or more, right? So so on average, you're 100% correct, right? On average, you're gonna get a 7 wound hero. Yeah, like that's
which is good value.
Well, that's super relevant, right? Yeah, that's great. And then when you are winning, because I know what it feels like to lose with Cruelboys when you're picking up all your gut rippers and everything without having traded. But when you are winning in turn 4, turn 5, like how are you closing it out? Like what battle tactics are you taking late, and how are you trying to actually like win the game? Like how are you trying to close?
If you are winning, you pretty much you tabled them. Sorry.
Yeah.
Had to cough. Yeah, you're either tabling them or getting tabled most of the time. I find this Cruelboys.
Yep, high damage, right? Like glass cannon army. That's how that's gonna play out. Yep.
Yeah, and then there's some battle tactics you can get. Like if you did sneak up on turn 2, then you can do the one where you move out of your territory on turn 4, or the other way around. You can also, if your Sludge Breaker did die, you can do the
Yeah, I can't
the
remember.
one reprisal, right?
Yeah, reprisal. Yeah.
If you are in complete control, turn 4 try to set up for surround and destroy, which will be pretty easy if you have like the board control by then. Turn 5 you can get the battle tactic.
For surround and destroy, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Gupsprack's pretty fast. If he's still alive, he can make it. You know,
Yeah, keep one shaman in the back.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Anything else you wanted to mention about the list, or about like your strategies for Cruelboyz?
One thing I want to mention is sometimes you don't want to actually position your Bullboys right behind your Garripas for the Unleash Hell. In 2 scenarios. One is like you have the possibility of getting double turn. They're just gonna kill your Garripas and kill your Bullboys turn after. Or there's a lot of units that have like 2 or 3 inch reach, like the zombie dragons from Flesh Eater Courts and Soulblight Grave Lords. A lot of monsters, they can actually charge you, you unleash hell, but then their 2-3 inch reach attacks are gonna catch the Bullboys and kill all of them.
Right. So you would say that it's better to like keep them alive for the next turn and get some hasty shots in and not unleash hell?
Yeah, definitely. And against KO too, you definitely don't want. So the thing is, KO can fly high, and they're gonna land 9 inches away from your screens, right? Your Garripas.
Yeah.
So you want to keep your Bullboys at least 3 inches behind the Garripas, so when they fly in, they can't shoot the Bullboys because you have the Grinning Blades 12-inch stealth.
Yeah, and unleash hell is at 6 inches, if I'm remembering correctly, right? Like they have to end within 6 inches. So you can kind of have the best of both worlds, right? Like if a zombie dragon is coming in and you're 4 inches behind, you can unleash hell and still be out of that 3 inch range.
Yep, that's true. So you don't have to be like right up against your Garripas.
Right.
You keep a distance.
Exactly. So yeah. So that's a very good point, right? Like you're reaching over your gut rippas with your Snatcher Boss, but make sure nothing's gonna reach over your gut rippas onto your Bullboys.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about the list? Because I have just one more question for you.
Yeah, you can. I can just mention that like the Smellion and Egomaniac makes the Sludge Breaker like a huge raid boss, -1 a hit and passing off wounds on a 4-up. So just don't be afraid to, like, if you can call the wall and get Gut Rippas and a Snatcher Boss and something else, and just send them in and do the damage.
Right, like don't worry too much. Like you said, you're trying to get him in as early as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
And likely, if you do enough damage, he won't die in the next turn.
Right. Because if you're trying to get him into combat as fast as possible, to me, that would also suggest that you're trying to call your Wah as fast as possible as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this list, are you, with this raid boss, Snatcher Boss, are you pretty loose with the Wah calling? Like, are you calling it pretty early? And, you know, even if it's not going to be like a super good trade, like if you're going to be able to delete a unit early, like is that worth calling the Wah? Like how easily are you calling the Wah in this list?
Usually the Wah is always with 3 units. It's with the Snatcher Boss, a unit of Goverpus, and Gobsprack. Because Gobsprack can easily fly in and take out like something like a hero or like a low medium threat unit. I wouldn't call the Wah if you're only taking out 1 unit. But if you can get like at least 2 or like 1 big unit and a hero, then it's worth taking doing the Wah. Especially if you know taking these units out, the next turn there's not a big threat coming, then it should be fine.
Sweet. So how would you rate Cruelboyz overall right now in this season?
Sorry, let me just think about this. At first I was gonna say they're probably at the low 8 here right now, but
because, you know, they're obviously in a better spot when this season started, I started seeing some, tournament wins coming out with Cruelboyz. I started seeing the meta watches where Cruelboyz were rising up in the ranks. And at first I thought like, hey, this could just be statistical anomaly. There's not a large enough data set. But now it's been a few months and I'm starting to see Cruelboyz do well. Like in the meta watches, I think that they're up to like, I can't remember exactly, but I thought it was something like 50% win rate. Right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, and they're sitting around 50% right now, which is quite good. And Big Wa is sitting at like 53 or something like that.
Yeah, Big Wa, I think in the Orclan's book is still doing the best. They just have access to all the best tools, right?
Yeah, I think they're gonna be even better now with those Ragers.
Yeah.
Maybe the Arc Boys are more expensive.
Well, the way that I see Big Wa right now is I think that Big Wa got better with these new units, but I think that the range of lists that you can play got smaller.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
It's like you're not going to see a Maw Crush a Big Wa list anymore, right? You're just not going to see it. So it's like Snatcher Boss is the new Big Wa raid boss, if that's what you're looking for, I believe.
Yeah, I've seen some people even talking about not including the Warzog Prophet.
Ooh, what?
Yeah, well, it is very strong, but it is predictable because it has a 12-inch range. If the other opponent knows about it, then they could just stay out of the range, but sometimes it's hard to avoid.
Yeah, but go ahead, stay out of the range. Like,
true.
but like I'm playing a castle. You're not going to come into my castle? Okay. Like, I don't want you to come into my castle. I'm going to move up into the middle of the board. I'm going to take some pretty good board position. I'm still going to have some threat range with playing Bolt Boys, and I still have really powerful casters with good spells. I'm going to sit in the middle of the board with Gobsprak and deny any magic that you try. It's like, you don't want to come into my castle. Good. Don't. Stay over there. He also generates all the, like, Wa points.
Yeah, 1 walk point. Yep.
Right?
So he generates like 4 to 5 by the end. That's useful. This is actually pretty important, though.
He's a 2 spellcaster as well, so if you're not using his Destair Mask, you could also use it's called Foot of Gork, I believe, right? His other War Scroll spell.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a Horde Buster at 24-inch range that really loves Primal Dice. I don't know. Wargog's pretty good.
He also has a Fight Last spell, right? It's also pretty useful.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's got a lot of really good... Like, he has a lot of utility. He has even his 4-up ward. Like, he's hard to get rid of, even if you try to get him. Yeah, I don't know. Wargog's like one of my favorite units in Big Wa. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be convinced with good arguments, right? But my first thought's like, are you crazy? That's my first thought. So yeah, I don't know. Like, where would you put Cruelboyz now? Like, solid.
I would say
B?
low A tier.
Okay.
Like not only like maybe like 8 months, 6 months ago, they're considered D tier, F tier army.
Yep.
And they climbed really high.
Yep.
I think Gobsprak is the biggest reason.
Sure.
Two big reasons. Gobsprak, like yesterday I played a game where on turn 1, their Nurgle caster tried to cast a spell. I denied it, rolled a 6. He failed the ward saves and lost his caster.
Yep.
First turn. I've played games where they just didn't want to cast because of threat of Gobsprak. It's very strong.
In my GT, 2 out of my 5 games, my opponents stopped casting spells. As soon as I told, because I'm fair, I'll tell them, be like, here's Gobsprak and here's what he does. I hope you have lots of Endorian Locusts. And people just stop casting. So my comparison is like, if you had a unit that said, enemy heroes with a wounds characteristic of 6 or less with 30 inches of this model can't cast spells, you would think that was an absolutely insane, totally broken ability, and you would be correct. And Gobsprak teeters on that power level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they reduced its points by 20, I believe, in the last few War Scrolls ago. It's very strong. Second is the new battle tactic Sneak Up. Very easy to get. It's definitely helps Cruelboyz a lot.
Yeah, one easy battle tactic goes a long way. For sure.
Yeah, combined with like points decreases across the board. Even though like some of the units I don't use, like Gnash Tooth, even the corpse ripper vulture, it's not used as much anymore. But now it's only 200 points. It's like
Very
it's a,
cheap
it's
monster.
a steal.
It is.
If we can afford placing it.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad. Like, I always wanted to run a list that had a Gobsprak, a Kill the Boss on Vulture, and a Snatch Boss in it. This, I mean, Cruelboys still needs work. I think we still need lots of internal balance, right? Because we don't see we tend not to see as often some of our other monsters like Break a Boss. Like, we see it sometimes, but yeah, I don't know. I want to play those other monsters or those other little heroes more.
Yeah, the breakup boss is actually it's still not bad, but you know the thing about the Cruelboys army roster is almost everything is very playable, it's very good, except maybe Manok, the cutting crew, and the marsh crawler slog off.
Yeah, Marsh Crawler is just a Gits unit now, and that's okay.
Yeah, and the thing with the Merc Knob is actually a very good unit if we didn't have Gobsprak, because I find like I barely take any damage from spells now, so even though Merc Knob's very strong for 70 points, we don't need it.
Correct. I think it'd be better if it wasn't a hero too.
Yeah.
It would. I think it'd fit. I think if it wasn't a hero, I think you would take them way more often. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because in your list, it's like you need that unit of Hobgrots to fill out your battle line requirement. But if you could take a unit of Gut Rippers and split them into 2 10s, and then suddenly you could take a Merc Knob, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, okay, cool, awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today, and I hope you're going to be playing in more tournaments coming up soon. I hope.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna go. I'll be playing in a GT next month, so
Awesome.
hopefully that goes well.
And you're gonna play Cruelboys still?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, best of luck to you, and we'll have to chat about it when you're done.
Yeah, sounds good.